I woke up at 2:47 a.m. last Tuesday with my heart absolutely pounding in my chest, and I just knew something was about to happen. Jesus had been speaking to me for 3 nights straight, showing me things that honestly terrified me, and this night, this was different. He was about to give me 7 specific warnings for this very week we're living in right now, and what he showed me about what's coming has left me unable to sleep peacefully since. What Jesus revealed wasn't about some distant tribulation or far-off judgment. He was warning me about this week, about what's happening right now in the spiritual realm, while most believers are completely, utterly blind to it. Before we begin, tell me one thing you're praying for right now in the comments. I want to pray with you by name, and if you're a true believer in Christ, if you've genuinely repented, if you have saving faith, if you're truly following Jesus, please subscribe. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you've been taught about readiness. I need to know there are believers out there who are awake, watching, and ready. So, let me back up a little bit. I'm Jonathan Roumie, and for those who don't know, I played Jesus in The Chosen. I'm 51, single, no wife, no kids, just me and God, honestly. And sometimes that isolation, that quiet, I think it's made me more, more sensitive to his voice, more available. I spend a lot of time alone, and in that solitude, Jesus has been showing me things that I never asked to see. It started last Monday night. I was in my living room, just sitting there on my couch around midnight, couldn't sleep. I'd been feeling this weight for weeks, like something was pressing down on my chest. You know, that feeling? Like anxiety but deeper, like a knowing in your spirit that something's wrong but you can't quite put your finger on it. I was just praying, not even with words really, just groaning in my spirit, asking God what this heaviness was about, and then the room changed. I was still sitting on my couch. I could feel the cushions beneath me. I could see my coffee table, but suddenly there was this other reality layered over it. It's hard to explain if you've never experienced it, but it's like, imagine looking through 2 windows at once, seeing 2 places simultaneously. I was in my living room, but I was also somewhere else, standing in this vast space that felt both ancient and immediate. Jesus was there. Not like in the show, not like the Jesus I portray with makeup and costumes and scripts. This was him, and the difference was so staggering I actually gasped out loud. There's a weight to his presence that no acting, no imagination can capture. His eyes, oh God, his eyes, they were filled with such love but also such grief that I immediately started weeping. "Jonathan," he said, and his voice made everything in me want to fall down. "What I'm about to show you, you must share. Time is shorter than my people think." I couldn't speak. I just nodded, tears streaming down my face. "This week," he continued, 7 things will happen in the spiritual realm that will determine the spiritual trajectory of countless believers. Most will miss all 7 completely. Most are so distracted, so comfortable, so convinced of their own readiness that they won't see what's right in front of them. He gestured, and suddenly I was seeing. I don't even know how to describe it. It was like watching multiple screens at once, seeing into homes and churches and prayer meetings all across America, maybe the world. But I wasn't seeing the physical spaces, I was seeing the spiritual reality behind them. The first warning, Jesus said, his voice heavy with sadness, is about the worship that's happening this week in my churches. And what he showed me, I honestly wanted to argue with him. I wanted to say, no, that can't be right, because I was seeing these beautiful worship services, thousands of people with their hands raised, tears on their faces, voices lifted in songs about Jesus. It looked powerful. It looked genuine. It looked like everything we've been taught real worship should look like. But then Jesus spoke again. "Look deeper. Look at what I see." And suddenly it was like a veil was pulled back. I could see into the hearts of the worshipers, and what I saw made me physically sick. The majority, and I mean the vast majority, weren't actually connecting with Jesus at all. They were performing. They were caught up in the emotion of the music, the energy of the crowd, the feeling of being part of something powerful. But their hearts were thinking about 100 other things. I saw one woman, hands raised high, face tilted toward heaven, looking like the picture of devotion. But Jesus let me see her thoughts. She was mentally rehearsing what she'd post on social media about the service, already composing the caption about how powerful the worship was, thinking about the likes she'd get, the comments, the image she was crafting. I saw a young man in the front row, jumping and shouting, completely lost in the music it seemed. But his mind was on the girl 3 rows back, wondering if she was watching him, if she was impressed by his passion, if this would make her interested in him. I saw a worship leader on stage, voice raised beautifully, leading thousands and singing about Jesus' worthiness. But Jesus showed me his heart. He was critiquing his own performance, worried about whether he hit the right notes, whether the lighting was good, whether this would lead to more opportunities, bigger platforms, maybe even a record deal. This, Jesus said, and his voice was breaking with grief. This is what most of my people call worship. They've learned to manufacture emotion. They've learned to perform devotion. But their hearts are 1,000 miles away from me. I was trembling now because honestly, I'd done this. How many times had I done exactly this? The first warning, he continued, is that this week I am walking through my churches during worship and I'm looking for true worshipers, those whose hearts are actually connected to mine, not just their voices. And Jonathan, he paused, looking at me with such intensity I could barely breathe. I'm finding so few, so desperately few. He showed me more. I saw a small church, maybe 40 people, singing an old hymn without any impressive lights or production. It looked humble, almost disappointing compared to the megachurch worship I'd just seen. But when Jesus showed me the hearts, oh my God, when he let me see what he was seeing, there was an elderly woman in the third row, voice shaky and thin, but her heart was so completely fixed on Jesus that it was like watching pure light. She wasn't thinking about anything else. She wasn't performing. She wasn't distracted. She was actually with him in genuine communion. And Jesus was leaning toward her. I saw this with my own eyes. He was leaning toward her like she was the only person in the room. This, Jesus said softly, this is what I'm looking for. But this week, in all the Sunday services, in all the worship nights, in all the prayer meetings, how many will actually worship me in spirit and truth? How many will stop performing and actually connect? I wanted to ask him more, but the vision shifted. I was suddenly seeing into a different kind of gathering, a prayer meeting on a Tuesday night. About 20 people scattered through the room, taking turns praying out loud. Again, it looked good. It sounded spiritual. People were using all the right language, all the proper phrases we've learned in church, but Jesus let me see what he was seeing, and it devastated me. Most of the people praying weren't actually talking to him. They were performing for each other. One man prayed this long, eloquent prayer filled with scripture references and theological terms, and it sounded impressive. Everyone murmured amen when he finished, but Jesus showed me his heart. He was proud of how he sounded, mentally noting that he'd probably impressed the newer Christians with his knowledge, already thinking about how he'd be asked to lead more prayers in the future. A woman prayed passionately about various needs in the church, and it seemed genuine, but her mind was racing through her to-do list for tomorrow, and she was really praying because she wanted to be seen as spiritual, wanted to maintain her reputation as a prayer warrior. The actual connection with God, it was barely there. The second warning, Jesus said, and his voice was stern now, is about prayer. This week, I'm listening to millions of prayers from my people, and most of them aren't actually talking to me. They're talking at me, or around me, or about me, but not to me. They've learned the language of prayer without learning the relationship of prayer. He showed me someone else then, a young guy, maybe early 20s, praying alone in his car during his lunch break. His prayer was simple, almost clumsy. He didn't use fancy words or quote scripture. He just talked to Jesus like a friend, honest about his struggles, his doubts, his fears. And Jesus was right there with him, present, listening, engaged. This is what I want, Jesus said. But how many of my people have lost this? How many have traded relationship for performance, authenticity for impression? I was starting to understand something, and it scared me. These warnings weren't about big, obvious sins. They weren't about people who'd completely walked away from God. These were warnings about believers, genuine believers who'd learned to go through all the right motions while their hearts drifted further and further from actual connection with Jesus. The third warning, Jesus continued, and now I was seeing social media feeds, hundreds of them scrolling past. This week, many of my people will post about me, will share scripture, will craft careful images of their faith. But look at the motivation. And again, he pulled back the veil. I saw person after person posting Bible verses, worship lyrics, testimonies about God's faithfulness. But underneath was this desperate need for validation, for likes, for comments, for recognition. They were using Jesus to build their brand, to maintain their image, to get attention, and they didn't even realize they were doing it. I saw one woman who posted a beautiful photo of her Bible and coffee mug with a caption about her morning devotions. It looked inspiring, got hundreds of likes. But Jesus showed me the reality. She'd spent 2 minutes reading a verse, then 15 minutes setting up and photographing the perfect shot, then another 10 minutes crafting the caption and choosing the right hashtags. Her actual time with God? Almost nothing. But her online image of time with God? Perfectly curated. This, Jesus said, and I'd never heard such sadness in a voice. This is what breaks my heart. They've learned to market me, to use me as content, to build their spiritual reputation, but they don't know me. Not really. Not in the secret place where no one else sees. I was weeping openly now, because I'd done versions of all of this. We all have, haven't we? When did we stop being authentic and start being performers? The vision was starting to fade, and Jesus turned to me fully. These are only the first 3 warnings, Jonathan. Tomorrow night, I'll show you the others. But understand this. What's happening this week right now while you're hearing this will reveal who has built on the rock and who has built on sand. The storms are coming, sooner than anyone thinks. And most of my people are completely unprepared because they've been playing church instead of being the church. How do I tell them? I asked, my voice breaking. How do I make them understand? Tell them what you've seen. Tell them that I'm looking for reality, not performance. Tell them that this week, every act of worship, every prayer, every moment they claim to be following me, I'm seeing it all. Not the image they project, but the actual state of their hearts, and most of what I'm seeing. He trailed off, grief overwhelming his features. Most of what I'm seeing breaks my heart. The vision ended, and I was back on my couch, gasping for air, my face wet with tears. It was 3:42 a.m. I sat there in the dark for hours, unable to move, unable to process everything I'd seen, but I knew I had to share it. Because if what Jesus showed me is true, and I know it is, I know it in every fiber of my being, then we're in serious trouble. We've gotten so good at looking like Christians that we've forgotten how to actually be Christians. And the most terrifying part? Most people watching this right now will think it doesn't apply to them. They'll think, yeah, those other Christians need to hear this, but I'm doing fine. That's exactly the blindness Jesus was warning me about. This week, not someday, not eventually this week, Jesus is watching. He's looking past all our performances, all our carefully crafted images, all our religious activities. He's looking at our hearts. And the question is, what will he find when he looks at yours? Tomorrow night he showed me 4 more warnings. What he revealed about Bible study, about serving, about worship at home versus worship at church, and about what's about to happen that will separate the wheat from the chaff. It's going to challenge everything you think you know about being ready. But for now, I need you to ask yourself, when was the last time you actually connected with Jesus? Not performed for him, not learned about him, not posted about him, but actually connected with him? When was the last time you were alone with God and nobody else was watching, so there was no reason to impress anyone, and you just talked to him? Really talked to him? If you can't remember, then please, hear this warning. You're in danger. We're all in danger if we keep living this way. The next night, I didn't want the vision to come. I'm being honest with you, I spent the whole day Tuesday dreading what Jesus would show me. Because if the first 3 warnings had shaken me that badly, what were the next 4 going to do? Part of me wanted to pretend Monday night was just a dream, just my imagination running wild. But I knew better. Deep down, I knew better. I tried to stay awake. I paced my apartment, drank coffee at 11 p.m., turned on worship music, anything to avoid going to sleep. Because I just knew the moment I laid down, he'd be there again, and I wasn't sure I could handle more truth. But exhaustion won. Around 1:30 a.m., I finally collapsed into bed, and almost immediately, I felt that shift. That pulling sensation, like being drawn out of one reality and into another. My bedroom was still there, but so was he. Jesus was standing at the foot of my bed, and the expression on his face, it was worse than the night before. If Monday night, he'd looked grieved, Tuesday night he looked heartbroken. Actually heartbroken, like someone who'd been betrayed by the people he loved most. "Jonathan," he said quietly, "are you ready to see the rest?" I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. "The 4th warning," he began, and suddenly I was seeing inside people's homes. Dozens of them, hundreds maybe. And in almost every single one, I saw someone sitting with their Bible open. At first, I felt relieved. See, people are reading their Bibles. I thought, that's good, right? But Jesus said, watch what they do with what they read. I saw a middle-aged man, Bible open on his dining room table, highlighter in hand. He was reading through Ephesians, carefully highlighting verses, making notes in the margins. It looked studious, dedicated, but then Jesus showed me what was happening in his heart. He was reading to win arguments. Every verse he highlighted, every note he made, it was ammunition for Facebook debates, for proving other Christians wrong, for feeling superior in his theology. He wasn't reading to know Jesus better, he was reading to know more than other people. I saw a woman in her 20s, Bible app open on her phone, working through a reading plan. She was on day 287 of a Read the Bible in a Year plan, and she was proud of her streak. But Jesus let me see the truth. She was skimming, racing through chapters just to check them off, barely absorbing anything, more focused on maintaining her perfect attendance than actually encountering God and His Word. When she finished her reading for the day, she immediately posted about it on Instagram with a screenshot of her completed day, then spent the next 20 minutes scrolling through other people's posts instead of sitting with what she'd just read. This is the fourth warning, Jesus said, and his voice was heavy. This week, millions of my people will read my word, but most of them will treat it like information to collect rather than revelation to encounter. They'll read it to complete plans, to win arguments, to maintain appearances, to feel spiritual, but they won't let it change them. They won't let it expose them. They won't let it transform them. He showed me someone different then, an older man, maybe in his 70s, sitting at his kitchen table at 5 a.m. with a worn Bible. No highlighters, no study guides, no phone nearby, just him and the Word. He was reading slowly, so slowly through John chapter 15. I watched him read the same verse 3 times, his lips moving slightly, and then he just stopped. He sat there in silence for what felt like 10 minutes, tears slowly rolling down his cheeks. Jesus showed me what was happening. The man wasn't just reading words, he was encountering truth, letting it sink deep, letting it expose areas of his life that weren't aligned with what he was reading. He was letting it hurt, letting it heal, letting it change him. This, Jesus said softly, this is what I'm looking for. But how many of my people will actually do this? How many will slow down enough, quiet down enough to let my word actually work in them? I wanted to defend us, defend Christians. But Lord, I said, people are busy. Life is complicated. We're doing the best we can. He cut me off, not unkindly but firmly. Jonathan, don't make excuses for what I'm showing you. The issue isn't time. The issue is heart. I see people spend 3 hours scrolling social media, 2 hours watching television, an hour planning their perfect morning coffee setup for Instagram, and then they tell me they don't have time to sit with my word. It's not about time, it's about priority, it's about desire. That hit me hard because he was right. I'd done it too, we all have. We find time for what we really want. The vision shifted again, and now I was seeing churches but not during services. I was seeing what happened Monday through Saturday, when the buildings were mostly empty, and what I saw confused me at first. The fifth warning, Jesus said, is about service. I saw church volunteers, dozens of them, serving in various capacities, running children's programs, setting up for events, greeting people at the door, serving on worship teams, leading small groups, and it all looked good. It looked like exactly what churches are supposed to be doing, people using their gifts to serve. But then, again, Jesus showed me the hearts. I saw a woman who'd been volunteering in the nursery for 5 years. Every Sunday, without fail, people praised her dedication, called her a servant's heart. But Jesus let me see what was really driving her. She was doing it because it made her feel needed, important, valuable. If she wasn't serving, she felt worthless. Her identity was completely wrapped up in being the dependable one, the one people could count on, but she was exhausted, burned out, resentful actually, though she'd never admit it. She kept serving not out of love for God or people, but out of fear of what would happen to her reputation if she stopped. I saw a worship team member who played guitar with so much apparent passion, but Jesus showed me his heart. He was there for the stage time, for the feeling of being talented, for the attention. During the week, he barely prayed. He rarely read his Bible. He had ongoing sin in his life that he refused to address. But every Sunday, he was up on stage, leading people in worship, and everyone thought he was this amazing man of God. Jesus showed me the disconnect, how this man could lead people in singing about holiness while living in secret compromise. I saw a small group leader who seemed to pour into his group members, always available, always counseling, always there for people. But underneath was this need to be the hero, to be the wise one, to be the one with all the answers. He wasn't pointing people to Jesus, he was subtly pointing them to himself, creating dependence on him rather than on God. This, Jesus said, and I could hear anger mixing with the grief now. This is what much of service has become in my church. Performance motivated by fear, pride, need for attention, desire for identity, anything except genuine love for me and my people. They're serving me with their hands while their hearts are serving themselves. I felt sick. But Lord, I said, surely not everyone. Not everyone, he agreed, but far more than you think. And this week, I'm watching every act of service in my church. I'm not looking at what people do, I'm looking at why they do it. And Jonathan, so much of it is going to burn up as wood, hay, and stubble because it wasn't done out of love for me. He showed me a contrast. A man who served on the parking team, literally one of the most thankless, invisible roles in the church. He was out there every Sunday in the heat or cold, directing cars, helping elderly people get to the door safely. No one knew his name. No one praised his service. He wasn't on stage, wasn't recognized, wasn't building any kind of platform or reputation. But Jesus showed me his heart. He served out of pure love. He genuinely saw every person he helped as someone Jesus loved, someone worth serving. He prayed for people as he directed them to parking spots. He saw it as worship, as communion with Jesus. This is the service I see and honor, Jesus said. But how rare it's become. Most of my people want to serve in ways that get them noticed, that build their reputation, that make them feel important. The parking lot, the nursery, the cleanup crew, the behind-the-scenes roles, these go unfilled because people would rather serve where they can be seen. The vision shifted again, faster now. I was seeing bedrooms, living rooms, cars, private spaces where people were alone, and I was seeing what their worship looked like when no one else was watching. The sixth warning, Jesus said, and his tone became even more serious, is about the gap between public worship and private devotion. What I saw absolutely wrecked me. I watched the same people I'd seen earlier with their hands raised in church, singing passionately, appearing so devoted, and then I saw them at home. One guy who'd been weeping during worship on Sunday was looking at pornography Monday night. A woman who'd lifted her hands and declared Jesus as Lord was tearing her husband apart with her words, with cruelty and contempt that made me flinch. A young man who'd posted Instagram stories about the powerful worship was living a completely double life, partying Friday and Saturday nights, getting drunk, sleeping around, and then showing up Sunday morning acting like everything was fine. This is the sixth warning, Jesus said, and I'd never heard such firmness in his voice. The distance between who my people pretend to be on Sunday and who they actually are the rest of the week has become a chasm. They've learned to worship me with their lips while their hearts and their lives are far from me. This week, I'm measuring that gap, and for most, it's so wide that they're in danger of hearing me say, "I never knew you." I was shaking now. But Lord, nobody's perfect. We all struggle, we all fail. This isn't about perfection, he interrupted. This is about authenticity. This is about people who act like they're mine in public but live like they're not when they're alone. This is about Christians who have mastered the art of looking spiritual without actually being transformed. And Jonathan, I'm telling you, the hour is late. The time for playing games is over. Either you're mine or you're not. Either you're surrendered or you're not. There's no middle ground anymore. The intensity of his presence was overwhelming. I felt like I was going to pass out, honestly, but he wasn't done. The seventh warning, he said, and the entire atmosphere changed. It felt heavy, ominous, like something massive was about to shift. The seventh warning is about what's coming this very week. Suddenly I was seeing into the spiritual realm in a way I'd never experienced before. I saw angels and demons, both sides positioned like armies, and I realized they were getting ready for something, preparing for some kind of event, some kind of shift. This week, Jesus said, I'm releasing a shaking. Not physically, most people won't see it with their eyes, but in the spiritual realm, everything that can be shaken will be shaken. Every false foundation, every half-hearted commitment, every comfortable Christianity that's been built on sand, it's about to be tested. And those who've been playing church, those who've been performing spirituality without actually walking with me, they're going to face circumstances this week that will expose exactly where they really stand. I watched in the vision as situations began to unfold, people facing sudden trials, financial pressure, relationship conflicts, health scares, unexpected challenges. But what I saw was that these weren't random. Jesus was allowing circumstances that would reveal what was really in people's hearts, what they truly believed when it wasn't easy to believe, who they ran to when things got hard. This week, Jesus continued, I'm going to see who really trusts me and who just talks about trusting me, who really believes my promises and who just posts them on social media, who really walks by faith and who only talks about faith when it's convenient. I saw some people whose faith crumbled immediately when trials hit. They panicked, fell apart, blamed God, started questioning everything. But then I saw others, and honestly, some of them surprised me. People I wouldn't have expected to stand firm, who did. People who'd seemed weak, who turned out to be strong. People who'd been quiet and unnoticed in church, who suddenly revealed they'd been building their lives on solid rock all along. The shaking is mercy, Jesus said, and I didn't understand it first. It's mercy because it's revealing truth before it's too late to change. It's exposing the cracks in foundations before the real storm comes. And Jonathan, the real storm is coming soon, so much sooner than anyone thinks. This week's shaking is a warning, a chance to rebuild, to get serious, to stop playing games and actually surrender. The vision was starting to fade, but Jesus grabbed my arm. I actually felt his hand on my arm, strong and warm and real. Tell them, he said urgently, tell them all 7 warnings. Tell them that this week matters. Every choice, every moment of worship, every prayer, every act of service, every private decision, when no one's watching, it all matters. The shaking is here. The separation is beginning. And I need my people to wake up before it's too late. I woke up at 4:17 a.m., drenched in sweat, my heart racing so fast I thought I might be having a heart attack. I got up, paced my apartment for an hour, and then I did something I haven't done in years. I literally got on my knees, actually on my knees, on my hardwood floor, and I wept. I wept for how much I'd been playing church instead of being the church. I wept for all the performances, all the times I'd chosen reputation over reality. I wept because everything Jesus showed me applied to me just as much as anyone else. And I made a decision, right there, on my knees at 5:30 inches the morning. No more performances. No more playing games with God. No more managing my image while my heart stays unchanged. Whatever it costs, whatever it looks like, I want to be real. I want Jesus to look at my life and see authenticity, see genuine surrender, see someone who's actually building on the rock instead of pretending to. Because here's what I know now, what I know in the deepest part of me. We're out of time for fake Christianity. We're out of time for comfortable religion that doesn't cost us anything, doesn't change us, doesn't transform us. Jesus is looking for people who are actually his, who are actually surrendered, who are actually ready. And this week, this very week you're living in right now, he's watching, he's testing, he's shaking. And the question is, what will be revealed when he looks at your life? I didn't sleep the rest of Tuesday night. Honestly, I couldn't. My mind was racing, my heart was pounding, and I kept thinking about everything Jesus had shown me. But more than that, I kept thinking about one question that wouldn't leave me alone. Okay, so now what? I mean, he'd shown me all these warnings, all these problems, all the ways we've been getting it wrong. But what was I supposed to do about it? What were any of us supposed to do? I spent all of Wednesday in this weird fog, trying to process everything, praying constantly, asking Jesus, so how do we fix this? How do we actually live the way you want us to live? I should have known, he'd answer. Wednesday night, I didn't even make it to my bed. I was sitting at my kitchen table around 11 p.m., Bible open in front of me, journal next to it, just pouring my heart out to God. And suddenly, that familiar shift happened. The room didn't change this time. I stayed right there at my kitchen table. But Jesus was there, sitting across from me like we were just 2 friends having coffee. You want to know how to pass the test? He said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I said, and my voice cracked. Lord, I don't want to be one of those people you showed me. I don't want to be playing games. I don't want to be performing. But I also don't know. I don't know how to do this right. How do we actually live the way you're asking us to live? He smiled then, and it was the first time in 3 nights I'd seen him smile. Not a big smile, but gentle, almost sad. "Jonathan, the answer is simpler than you think, but it's also harder than anything I could ask of you." "Tell me," I said. "Please, just tell me." "The test," he said, leaning forward, "isn't complicated. I'm not looking for people who do more, know more, or perform better. I'm looking for people who actually want me, not what I can give them. Not the blessings, not the ministry opportunities, not the spiritual reputation, just me. I'm looking for people who would choose me, even if it cost them everything, even if no one ever knew, even if they got nothing else out of it." I sat there, letting that sink in. It sounded simple. But as I thought about it, I realized how radical it actually was. "This week," Jesus continued, "everyone who calls themselves mine is going to face moments, small moments that most people won't even recognize as significant, where they'll have to choose. Choose between me and their comfort, between me and their reputation, between me and their plans, between me and what everyone else is doing. And those choices, Jonathan, those tiny daily choices that no one else sees, that's the test. That's how I'm separating those who are truly mine from those who are just using my name." He stood up then, and suddenly we weren't in my kitchen anymore. We were in this huge space, like a warehouse or something, and it was filled with people, thousands of them, all believers, all Christians, and they were all facing different situations, different challenges, different moments of choice. "Watch," Jesus said. I saw a woman standing in her bedroom, alarm going off at 5 a.m. She'd committed to getting up early to pray, to spend real time with Jesus, but she was exhausted. Every fiber of her being wanted to hit snooze, sleep another hour. It was such a small moment. No one would know if she skipped it, but I watched her face as she wrestled with the choice. Finally, she got up, and the moment she did, I saw Jesus smile. Not because getting up early was magical or special, but because she'd chosen him over her comfort. In that tiny, invisible moment, she'd proven her heart was real. I saw a man at work, in a meeting where everyone was gossiping about a coworker who wasn't there. He could join in, it would be easy, would make him part of the group, would actually help his reputation with his boss who was leading the gossip. Or he could stay quiet, maybe even defend the person being talked about. It would cost him, make things awkward, maybe even hurt his standing. I watched him take a breath, and then quietly say, "Actually, I don't think we should talk about him when he's not here." The room got uncomfortable. People looked at him weird. But Jesus was watching, and I saw his expression: pride, approval. Not because the man was perfect, but because in that moment, he'd chosen Jesus' way over his own advancement. I saw a teenager alone in her room at night, phone in hand. She could keep scrolling through Instagram, feeding the comparison and jealousy and discontent that was growing in her heart. Or she could put it down, pick up her Bible, actually connect with God. Such a small choice. No one would see it either way. But I watched her close the app, set the phone aside, and reach for her Bible. And Jesus leaned forward, fully attentive to her, like she was the only person in the universe. "This is the test," Jesus said to me. "Not big, dramatic moments, not public declarations or impressive ministries, just daily, moment-by-moment choices to actually follow me when it costs something, even if the cost is small, even if no one sees, especially if no one sees." He showed me more examples. A husband choosing to serve his wife when he was tired and didn't feel like it. A woman choosing to forgive someone who hurt her instead of rehearsing the offense one more time. A young man choosing to turn off a show that was filling his mind with garbage, even though all his friends watched it. A mother choosing to speak gently to her kids instead of unleashing her frustration. A student choosing not to cheat on a test even though it would be easy and everyone else was doing it. Over and over, I saw these tiny moments, these invisible choices, and every single time someone chose Jesus' way, chose obedience, chose integrity, chose love, chose surrender even when it was hard, even when it cost them, even when no one was watching, Jesus saw it, honored it, delighted in it. But I also saw the opposite. People who called themselves Christians making the opposite choices, hitting snooze instead of praying, joining the gossip, staying on social media instead of in the Word, being harsh with their families, taking the easy path, compromising. And Jesus showed me what he saw when they did. Hearts that were ultimately serving themselves, not him. Christians who wanted Jesus as an add-on to their lives, not as their actual Lord. Jonathan, he said, turning back to me, here's what I need you to understand. The shaking I'm releasing this week, it's going to create hundreds, thousands of these choice moments for my people. Little tests, daily opportunities to prove where their hearts really are. Most won't even recognize them as tests. They'll just think they're going through a hard week, facing normal challenges. But I'm watching every choice, every moment, because these choices reveal everything. So what do I tell people? I asked. How do I help them pass the test? Tell them this, he said, and his voice became intense, urgent. First, wake up. Stop sleepwalking through your Christianity. Start recognizing that every moment matters, every choice is spiritual, every decision is either moving you closer to me or further from me. There's no neutral ground. Stop treating your faith like something you do on Sundays and live the rest of your life on autopilot. I was writing this down in my mind, desperate to remember every word. Second, he continued, get brutally honest about your heart. Stop lying to yourself. Stop making excuses. Stop comparing yourself to other Christians and feeling good because you're not as bad as they are. I'm not grading on a curve, Jonathan. The question isn't whether you're better than other believers. The question is, are you actually mine? Do you actually want me? Or are you just using me? That hit hard, really hard. Third, start making different choices. Today, right now, not tomorrow, not when you feel more ready, not when it's more convenient. This week is the test. Starting this moment, start choosing me. When your alarm goes off and you're tired, choose me anyway. When the opportunity to gossip comes up, choose me instead. When you're alone and tempted, choose me even though no one's watching. When your spouse irritates you, when your kids frustrate you, when life gets hard, choose my way, choose love, choose obedience, choose surrender. But Lord, I said, and I felt so inadequate, what if I fail? What if I make the wrong choice? His expression softened. Jonathan, I'm not looking for perfection, I'm looking for direction. I'm not measuring whether you never fail, I'm measuring whether you actually care that you failed, whether you come back to me, whether your heart is genuinely pursuing me or just performing for others. When you mess up, and you will come to me immediately. Confess it, repent genuinely, and keep moving forward. Don't let shame or guilt keep you distant. That's the enemy's trick, making you think you have to clean yourself up before you can come to me. He paused, and I could see him looking at me with such intense love that I started crying again. But Jonathan, I also need you to understand something crucial. There are people who are going to fail this test because they're not actually mine. They've been going through the motions, playing the part, but their hearts have never truly surrendered. This week's shaking is going to expose that, and for some, it's going to be devastating. They're going to realize they've spent years, maybe decades, building their lives on sand. They've been Christians in name only. What happens to them? I asked, afraid of the answer. That depends on what they do with the revelation, he said. Some will finally wake up, finally get real, finally truly surrender. The shaking will be the best thing that ever happened to them because it will lead to genuine salvation, genuine transformation. But others, he trailed off, grief filling his face again. Others will double down on the performance. They'll work harder at looking spiritual instead of actually becoming spiritual. They'll blame others for their struggles instead of examining their own hearts. And they'll continue down a path that ends in me saying, I never knew you. The vision shifted one more time. I saw two groups of people, both facing the same kinds of challenges, the same tests. But their responses were completely different. One group kept turning to Jesus, kept choosing his way even when it was hard, kept getting back up when they failed, kept pressing forward with genuine hearts. They weren't perfect. They stumbled. They struggled. But their direction was clear. They were moving toward Jesus, pursuing him, wanting him more than their comfort or reputation. The other group kept making excuses, kept choosing the easy path, kept prioritizing their comfort over obedience. And the scary thing was, they looked Christian. They still went to church, still posted about Jesus online, still used all the right language. But their hearts were far from him, and the gap was growing wider every day. This week will reveal which group every believer belongs to, Jesus said. And Jonathan, I need you to tell them that it's not too late. It's not too late to change course, to get real, to actually surrender. But the window is closing. The time for playing games is over. The vision ended, and I was back at my kitchen table. It was 2:33 a.m. Thursday morning. I sat there for a long time, just processing everything, praying, honestly terrified by the weight of what I'd been shown. But here's what I know I need to tell you, what Jesus needs me to tell you. This week matters. This very week you're living in right now, it's not just another week. Jesus is watching, testing, shaking. Every choice you make, every moment when you decide between His way and your way, between obedience and compromise, between authenticity and performance, He sees it all. And those choices are revealing your true spiritual condition. So here's what I'm asking you to do, what Jesus is asking you to do. First, stop right now and get honest with God, really honest. Not the prayers you pray in public, not the spiritual sounding words you've learned in church. Get alone with Jesus and tell Him the truth. Are you actually His? Do you actually want Him, or do you just want what He can give you? Have you been performing or genuinely pursuing? Don't lie to yourself anymore. Don't make excuses. Just get real. Second, ask Him to show you the truth about your heart. This is scary, I'm not going to lie. Because He will show you. He'll show you the ways you've been playing games, the areas where you've been compromising, the gaps between what you say you believe and how you actually live. It's going to hurt, but it's necessary. You can't change what you won't acknowledge. Third, starting today, literally today, start making different choices. When you face those moment-by-moment decisions, those little tests that Jesus showed me, choose Him. Choose obedience even when it's hard. Choose integrity even when no one's watching. Choose love even when you don't feel like it. Choose His way even when it costs you comfort, reputation, or convenience. And fourth, don't do this alone. Find someone, one person you can trust, and tell them you're getting serious about following Jesus for real. Ask them to pray for you, to check in on you, to hold you accountable. Not in a legalistic way, but in a genuine, loving way. We need each other for this. We can't fake it when we're being real with another believer who's also pursuing Jesus genuinely. Listen, I know this message is hard. I know it's challenging. I know some of you are feeling convicted right now, maybe even angry or defensive. That's okay. That's the Holy Spirit working. Don't run from it. Lean into it. Let Him do what He needs to do in your heart. But I also want you to hear this. There's hope. So much hope. Jesus isn't showing us these things to condemn us. He's showing us to save us. He's giving us this warning because He loves us, because He wants us ready, because He doesn't want us to miss what He has for us. If you've been playing church instead of being the church, it's not too late to change. If you've been performing instead of pursuing, you can stop today. If you've built on sand, you can start rebuilding on the rock right now. This very moment, Jesus is giving you a chance, an opportunity, a window of mercy. But please, please don't waste it. Don't brush this off. Don't think it's for someone else. Don't go back to business as usual. This week is the test. The shaking is here. And what you do with what you've heard right now could determine your eternal destiny. I'm praying for you, genuinely praying for everyone who hears this message. I'm praying that it wakes you up, shakes you up, and ultimately draws you into genuine, authentic, real relationship with Jesus. Not religion, not performance, but actual, surrendered, costly discipleship. Because that's what He's looking for. People who will choose Him when it costs something. People who will follow Him even when it's hard. People who want Him more than they want comfort, reputation, success, or approval. This week, Jesus is watching. He's testing. He's separating those who are truly His from those who just use His name. Which side will you be on? The choice is yours. Make it count. If this message has impacted you, if God has spoken to your heart through this, I need you to do something. Share this video. Share it with every believer you know. Not for my sake, but because people need to hear this. The church needs to wake up. We're out of time for comfortable Christianity. And leave a comment. Tell me what God is showing you. Tell me what you're going to do differently this week. Let's encourage each other. Let's spur each other on toward genuine faith and real transformation. I'll be praying for you by name. I'll be reading your comments and lifting you up before Jesus. We're in this together, and together, with God's help, we can be the kind of believers He's actually looking for: authentic, surrendered, and ready. God bless you. And please, please take this seriously. Your eternity may depend on it.